Boris Johnson, the eco-warrior. He's in Rome attempting to make climate change the most serious issue for G20 leaders, even before the COP26 conference has begun.
What we could do is get an agreement that means that COP26 in Glasgow is a way station that allows us to end climate change.
We still managed to produce some laughs, including from the French president, with whom he's having a row over fishing as he arrived late for the official photo. No hilarity from protesters in Glasgow, though, demanding action on the eve of the conference. Also, Prince Andrew asks a US court to dismiss the lawsuit brought against him. And pause for thought. It turns out your four-legged friend can understand what you're saying, or some of it at least.
This is ITV News with Kylie Pentelow.
Good afternoon. The Prime Minister is in Rome tonight at what is meant to be a wide-ranging meeting of G20 leaders. But Boris Johnson appears to have been doing his best to turn it into an extension of the COP26 climate conference, which follows tomorrow in Glasgow. He's lobbying his fellow leaders to come with stronger measures to keep global warming down. He told our political editor Robert Peston that the climate emergency is not going to be solved over the next few days, but they can make progress that keeps the hope alive.
The leaders of the world's 20 most powerful nations this morning. But where's the British one? Who, here in Rome, is setting himself up as an eco-warrior, though a disappointed one, ahead of next week's climate change conference in Glasgow.
You've already conceded that there is no chance that we will get agreements in the next days to limit global warming to 1.5. So what's the very best that you can get out of COP26 next week?
There is no chance of stopping climate change next week. There is no chance of getting an agreement next week to limit climate change to 1.5 degrees. What we could do is get an agreement that means that COP26 in Glasgow is a way station that allows us to end climate change.
On the plane yesterday, you said negotiating these commitments, these national commitments to reduce greenhouse gas emissions every 5 years is not good enough.
And it's something that the UK government has been thinking about for a long while. We don't want at this stage, Robert, obviously, to take any of the pressure off Glasgow. We want those leaders, more than 100 of them, coming to our country, really to focus on the commitments that they can make, moving away from the use of fossil fuel driven cars, moving away from coal-fired power stations domestically or abroad, planting millions of trees, about 1 trillion trees all in, and $100 billion a year, $100 billion a year to help the developing world.
We just had a budget. Yet again, you didn't increase the duty on petrol. If not now, when?
The UK is the country that's actually in advance of other European countries in moving away from hydrocarbon-driven internal combustion engine cars. We set.
But we don't have the right price of carbon, do we?
We set a deadline.
You know that. And
we
it's
set
not even on the agenda at Glasgow.
We're going far faster. You talk about fuel duty. We're doing something far more important. We're moving away from the use of internal combustion engine machines.
Why on earth are we in the Colosseum?
Roman Empire.
Okay. You could not have a more vivid metaphor for the risk that humanity is running. The Romans thought they were going to go on forever. They thought that their empire was going to flourish forever. Then wham, middle of the 5th century, they hit a complete crisis, uncontrolled immigration. You have the Dark Ages. The lesson is that things can go backwards, and humanity, for all its brilliance and all its genius, can suddenly find that you get into a convulsion, a crisis, where things get worse for a long time.
A Prime Minister who loves a stage, and especially one steeped in history. Will his climate change performance have a happy or tragic ending? It's not been written yet.
Robert, the PM seems pretty downbeat. What does he think he can achieve on climate change?
Well, he keeps using this phrase, which actually I think I managed to cut out of my filmed interview with him, of keeping 1.5 alive. And what that means is incremental steps that at least move us towards that target of 1.5 degrees increase in the temperature of the Earth above pre-industrial levels, because that is perceived by scientists to be the minimum temperature that wouldn't cause pretty catastrophic damage. So here in Rome, at the meeting of the leading 20 nations of the world, the most powerful, he wants all of them to sign up for net zero by 2050, 2060. A couple are still holding out. He wants the formal target to be 1.5. Actually, currently, it's 2 degrees. That was what was agreed in Paris. And then when we get to Glasgow, what he's looking for is agreement to phase out coal in 2030 and 2040, respectively, for developed and developing nations. Moves on lots more trees being planted. And as I said in my interview with him, they want to start negotiations on more commitments to reduce global warming, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions almost immediately. COP is finished in a couple of weeks.
OK, Robert Peston, thank you very much. While Boris Johnson and French President Emmanuel Macron are at the G20 in Rome, talks are continuing this weekend between their governments at home over fishing rights. Well, for more on this, our political correspondent Harry Horton is here. Harry, tensions have been growing as a deadline to solve this inches closer and closer.
Yeah, that's right. The rhetoric has certainly been increasing this weekend. The French President Emmanuel Macron said that this row is a test of the UK's global credibility. And this afternoon, Lord Frost, the Cabinet Office Minister, he said that the UK is actively considering launching legal proceedings against France if it follows through on its threats in this row. France has said unless it gets extra fishing licences by Tuesday, then it will disrupt not just fishing trade, but all sorts of goods that are bound for the UK. That would be seen as a significant escalation by the UK, I think. So there's lots of talks going on this weekend to try and resolve this row in Rome. In a meeting with Ursula von der Leyen, the EU Commission President, Boris Johnson said that the French threats are completely unjustified and do not appear to be compatible with international law. The EU Commission says it's actively trying to find solutions. But as things stand, tonight at midnight, the licences for 55 French fishing vessels will expire in and around the Jersey area, and I think that will anger the French somewhat and make this row even more complicated and harder to resolve.
OK, Harry, thank you. Well, protests are ramping up in Glasgow as ambassadors and activists converge on the city ahead of COP26. The conference is one of the largest events the UK has ever hosted, with thousands of delegates from 196 countries and thousands of protesters who want to be heard too. Our Scotland correspondent Peter Smith reports.
Will he go? The protesters have arrived. In Glasgow today, this was their alternative COP26 opening ceremony.
I was born in Kenya and I lived in the Pacific, in islands that 4 of them have gone under already because of rising sea level.
Where is the emergency action?
What do you want from this conference?
A good outcome with firm decisions that are stuck to, not just forgotten about in a month's time.
More than 100,000 are expected to be demonstrating outside COP26, and police have intelligence that some are coming here intent on causing disruption. With eyes on groups like Extinction Rebellion, I asked exactly what they are here to do.
We really need drastic action at this stage, and so morally we are all being called to act.
What are the plans for that action? We've seen a lot in London.
Well, I can't talk to you about any plans specifically, but we'll be present. I mean, we're not here to disrupt normal Glaswegians, that's important to mention. We're going to be very targeted in our approach.
Security is stretched this fortnight, with more than 100 world leaders under protection. Police Scotland have been training for it, and they're being supported by every single police force in the country. But the Chief Constable told me it's not their job to stop climate protesters.
We know that people are going to come to Glasgow, and actually it's important to recognise that the United Nations encourages that. One of the objectives of the conference is to mobilise citizens onto the street, is to mobilise public interest and concern around climate change.
This protest is just the beginning. More are on their way, and the city is braced for disruption because environmentalists say leaders are not listening to reason.
The science is clear the world is warming up. The science is also clear that reducing pollution could fix this, and the people with the power to do that are gathering here in Glasgow. These people are here to put pressure on them to make sure they deliver and turn talk into action. Peter Smith, ITV News, Glasgow.
Prince Andrew's lawyers have asked a New York court to throw out a sexual assault lawsuit against him. The Prince has always denied Virginia Giuffre's claims that he assaulted her in 2001 when she was 17. Now, his lawyers say she signed a deal agreeing not to target him, but her lawyers say that's not true. Chloe Keedy explains.
Prince Andrew hasn't been seen in public since his father's funeral in April, but we have now heard his first formal response to a lawsuit filed against him in August. He's being sued by Virginia Giuffre, one of the many victims of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. She alleges that she was trafficked by Epstein to have sex with Prince Andrew when she was 17, something the Prince has consistently denied. In papers filed with a court in New York, his lawyers have asked the judge to dismiss the case, describing the allegations as false and claiming that Ms. Giuffre's motive is money. They said it is unfortunate but undeniable that sensationalism and innuendo have prevailed over the truth. Giuffre has initiated this baseless lawsuit against Prince Andrew to achieve another payday at his expense and at the expense of those closest to him. They point to a settlement she made with Jeffrey Epstein in 2009, the terms of which they claim released Prince Andrew from liability in any future lawsuits. But Ms. Giuffre's lawyers say the Prince isn't covered by that agreement and that Prince Andrew's attempt now to use the 2009 release as a get-out-of-jail-free card shows how desperate he is to dodge and duck the facts of what he did.
We don't know what the release says. It's all blacked out in the filings. But we're at the stage where the judge is going to look at this and where Virginia Giuffre's attorneys say, oh, the release doesn't apply. And Prince Andrew says, oh, yes, it does. That's not a he said, she said. That's in black and white on the paperwork.
Prince Andrew's lawyers will attend a virtual pre-trial hearing on Wednesday, at which it's likely they'll be told when that crucial paperwork will be examined by a judge. Chloe Keedy, ITV News.
In the US, intelligence agencies have declared they may never be able to pinpoint the origin of COVID-19. They say animal-to-human transmission or a lab leak were both possible, but without new evidence, they can't say which is more likely. New figures show the number of people commuting to work by train is less than half of pre-pandemic levels, suggesting many people are still working from home. And the airline TUI has cancelled all flights to the Canary island of La Palma for the first 2 weeks of November due to the ongoing volcanic eruption there. Scorching hot lava and thick ash has been spewing from the volcano for 6 weeks. The National Trust has voted to permanently ban trail hunting from its land in a victory for anti-hunting campaigners. Those campaigners say trail hunting, in which a scent is laid for hounds to follow, is often just a cover for hunting live foxes, which has been illegal since 2005. Carrie Davis reports.
76,816. This was the web broadcast as the vote came in, a significant moment in the tussle between hunts and those who oppose them. At the centre of the debate, whether legal trail hunting is in fact a smokescreen, allowing illegal fox hunting to continue.
The hunting community remains committed to work with the Trust to ensure that everyone can have confidence that any trail hunting is open, transparent and legitimate.
Trail hunting involves laying a scent for hounds to follow instead of chasing a live animal. But foxes are still caught and killed. If accidental while following a trail, it's not against the law. Opponents claim this simply provides a cover for the real thing. An argument strengthened when a leading huntsman was found guilty of encouraging and assisting people to evade the fox hunting ban. In recordings first broadcast by ITV News, Mark Hankinson is heard telling attendees of webinars how to break the law.
It's a lot easier to create a smokescreen if you've got more than one trail there operating.
Following the police investigation, the National Trust withdrew their permission for hunts to cross their land. If accepted by the Board of Trustees, today's vote will make that temporary measure permanent. For anti-hunt campaigners, it's a big win. One group says any respectable landowner knows their reputation will be forever tarnished if they don't permanently distance themselves from the hunting community. The concern for hunts across the country is that other landowners may follow suit. Carrie Davis, ITV News.
On to sport, and England's cricketers are on top in their latest 2020 World Cup group match against Australia in Dubai. They bowled the Aussies out for 125 off the last ball of their 20 overs. And Britain's new tennis star Emma Raducanu is reflecting on her defeat in the Transylvanian Open in Romania. The US Open champion lost in straight sets to Marta Kostyuk in the quarter-finals. And finally, if you thought your dog was smart, you're probably right. Owners have known for decades that when they say walkies, their pet pooch knows exactly what the word means. Scientists have now examined dogs' brains and say they appear to learn words in the same way that human babies do. Ellie Pitt reports on your canine's comprehension.
Sit down. Sit, stay, paw. It's now been proven that your dog does know what you're saying.
Do you think he understands the words you're saying?
I don't. I think he understands tone, and I think he understands whether your voice is the pitch, high or low. And obviously he understands keywords like sausage and bed and good boy.
He knows it's a treat. She's only 8 months, so yeah, she doesn't always listen to me, if I'm honest.
Not at all. Only food, or chicken, or walkies.
According to a new study that scanned dogs' brains, they think a bit like us.
It turns out that dogs are tracking the number of times a word is used and listening out for sounds that occur together. It's exactly the same way that babies learn to pick up their first words.
This is the first time that we show that any mammal can use the complex patterns, can recognize the complex pattern to segment a speech.
Come.
But for this trainer, it's movements rather than words we should use if we want our four-legged friends to behave.
A lot of times I don't even use words. I use sign language, or like for instance, if I want the dog to sit, I just click my fingers. The majority of dogs understand that straight away, especially if you put it above their head and click.
However you choose to communicate with your pet, there's no denying your dog can understand you, even if they choose not to listen. Ellie Pitt, ITV News.
I knew it. That's it. I'm back with the late news at 11. Until then, bye-bye.